it starts getting cold. And it's been.
Good morning. Can you hear me this morning? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our Spartan Lectures for today. It is November 1st, whether you can believe it or not. And so I know time is moving quickly, and we have some good back row Baptists there in the back. Glad to see you guys. Welcome. It's exciting to have you today. Our focus is going to feel a little bit different than some of the things we have done recently in the past. Today we're going to focus on the idea of travel study and study abroad. So again, one of the things that we are passionate about for you as students here at MBU is that your experience here would really be transformational. And there are very, very few things that you can do while you are here that compete with going abroad, studying abroad, traveling with your peers into other places to learn and to grow together. That is one of the most transformative experiences that you can have while you're here. And so we want you to be able to learn about that, hear stories and testimonies of those that have done that, and also to hear about how accessible it can be. I know it may feel like it can be at times out of reach. It is not. It is something that we want to be attainable for you. And it was one of the things that I personally regret from my time in college is that I did not do this. So I hope that you will find today encouraging and that you'll see a lot of opportunities both for this year, this semester, and next semester, and even in the years ahead. So I hope you're excited for our time together. I'm going to pray, and then I'll introduce our first speaker to talk about some of these things with us today. Let's pray together. Lord, thanks for allowing us to gather together. Thank you for the opportunity to learn and grow, and we thank you for MBU, the opportunity to study, and just the wonderful privilege it is that we live in the culture and the society that allows us to travel all over the world. And Lord, we know that's a gift from you. That's something that you have instilled within us, is to know and experience various cultures all around the world. So I pray that you would help us to think carefully about how we can do that and to celebrate the diversity that is around the world that you've created. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, again, welcome. Come on in if you're just arriving, grab a seat. Let me introduce to you Mr. Bob Kilzer. He is our Director of Study Abroad, and he's going to tell you a little bit about some of those opportunities and where you can find information about this. Bob?
Well, let me start by good morning, and let me ask you to give me a show of hands of how many of you have traveled outside of the state of Missouri. Almost everybody. Okay, how many of you have traveled outside the country? Far fewer. Okay. What we're hoping to do by presenting this today is to give you some idea of what's available to you while you're here at MBU. Our desire is for you to come in as a student, to leave as a graduate, but to go through a journey in that process and to be a different person when you leave than when you come in. And one of the most transformative things you can experience when you're in college is study abroad. To be immersed in another culture, possibly another language, to see how the rest of the world sees us honestly, and to see how you fit into the whole picture. Those are really transformative experiences. And while you're here at MBU, you have an option of 32 programs in 21 countries. You can choose from a semester program, a summer program, or a short-term faculty-led program. And we have some faculty that are going to speak to you today who lead some of these programs, and they'll give you sort of an idea of what they do and insight into that. A summer program can be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a double summer, which might be 8 weeks. can get you in your junior or even senior year gen ed courses almost anywhere in the world. I cannot necessarily get you an upper level course in whatever your major might be somewhere else in the world. We can find electives, and we also offer internships all around the world. And those are wonderful experiences, whether you're a business major or not. Just that work experience is good to put on your resume. My office is in Spartan Village, building 401. And as you walk from the SAC parking lot into Spartan Village, it's the very first building on the right, the very first door on the right. There's a doorbell there that you can ring, and it states my office hours, and I can come and let you in. My office hours, for your information, are Tuesday and Wednesday mornings from 9 until 1. I can be reached by email any other time, but to schedule an appointment to sit down and talk with me about specifics, finances, and all that sort of thing, it would be during those hours most of the time. I also want to put in a plug. Coming up in a week or two is our International Festival, and there will be a day of the International Festival. It's on Thursday. We'll have some study abroad programs, presenters here that you can talk to in person. I will also have a table, and I may be able to have some of these students there if they're free, but a chance for you to talk without having a formal appointment to find out more about study abroad. I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, Ashley Bell, who has led our nursing students just this past summer on a wonderful trip and is working on a new trip for spring break. Ashley is an assistant professor of nursing, and so I'd like to ask you to welcome Ashley right now.
Well, thank you. As Mr. Kilzer said, my name is Ashley Bell, and I'm assistant professor of nursing. He asked me to come speak to you all just about 5 minutes about the importance of study abroad, so I have my script so I don't go over my 5 minutes. Today you're going to hear from several faculty, staff, and students regarding different types of trips and why each one is significant to your transformational learning. I am going to focus on medical missions and healthcare missions that we have available to you as students here at MBU. We have a heart for the spiritual and physical need for the nations because Jesus did. The very last thing Jesus said before he ascended to heaven was to go and make disciples of all nations. When we look at Jesus' ministry, we see he met spiritual and physical needs. In Matthew 4:23 it says, "And he," meaning Jesus, "went through all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction among the people." As those in healthcare, we have an opportunity to join Jesus in his healing ministry and provide relief of suffering as we provide holistic care to those who may not have access to healthcare. Since we have experienced the love of Jesus, we get to express his love to others. So this past summer, the MBU School of Nursing took a trip to Liberia, West Africa, and we provided basic neonatal resuscitation training to the midwives in the villages. And while we were there, we also provided a clinic for people in the village and surrounding villages. Sometimes they would walk for hours to have access to health care. We treated multiple issues such as malaria, typhoid, parasites, and malnutrition. In the picture behind me, these are some amazing MBU students. Let me tell you, there are a lot of reasons they could have used not to go to Liberia. The students behind me in this picture had to pay $3,000, receive a lot of vaccines, travel over 24 hours, sleep on mats in mosquito net tents in a hut in the jungle of Africa, endure the heat, face spiders that were as big as our hands, and be in an unfamiliar place away from family and friends where they did not know the language or the people. Yes, to get to those in desperate need, there were many barriers and many reasons not to go. But wow, isn't that a picture of what Jesus does for us? Through his life, death, and resurrection, Jesus breaks barriers and pursues a relationship with us despite the barriers. And that's what these students did this summer. They experienced the urgent need of people on the other side of the world and responded to that need. While in the village, one of the Liberian pastors, Emmanuel, asked us to come assess his wife because she was sick. After we assessed her, we found that she had a small bowel obstruction and she would die without surgical intervention immediately. So to get her to that surgery in that village, it required people to literally carry her miles to that surgery. It also required money. There is no health insurance there. And so immediately he talked about getting together people to accomplish this need, calling his family, getting everyone together. And the students saw this need and responded so quickly and with such sacrifice. For the students, the yes of obedience was already on the table to generously meet the urgent need that was before him. Emmanuel's wife was able to get to the clinic and into the operating room to correct the obstruction. The next day, we got word from Emmanuel that she was recovering, walking in the halls, and doing well. Praise God. However, a few days later, we received another call from Emmanuel. His wife had a low hemoglobin and hematocrit, and while she was receiving a blood transfusion, she became unresponsive and subsequently passed away. You know, blood transfusions are something we do here as nurses in the United States all the time, and they have a relatively low risk. But there, it took her life. So while this was not the outcome we had hoped and prayed for, we were deeply saddened by it. Together, we learned that when we sacrifice our own comforts to join Jesus in his mission and what he's doing in the world, even in the face of intense suffering, there is spiritual blessing. And this is transformative. God used this transformational experience to open our eyes to the needs around us, help us grow in our own faith as we trust him with our fear, and help us love others with deeper compassion and empathy. This upcoming year, the MBU School of Nursing is taking another trip to Athens, Greece. We have our team for that, and we are going to be ministering to a refugee population there. I can't wait to see what God does. Lord willing, we will be taking another trip to Liberia in the summer of 2024. So if you're interested in that, keep that on your radar. And if anyone has any questions at all about the MBU School of Nursing medical mission and healthcare opportunities, you can always email me, and I would be happy to set up a meeting to discuss any questions you might have. I would now like to introduce Ms. Stephanie Contram-Baumann. She is the Assistant Professor of Marketing and Business Administration, and she's also Chair of the Global Education Committee. Thank you.
Well, it's hard to follow that with my little marketing spiel and from my spring break trip, but many of you know me. How many of you are business students? Several, right in the front row. I wanted to talk a little bit about the travel study part, the study part of what we do also. So we offer all kinds of different opportunities. As Professor Bell just discussed, we actually offer course credit that you can get to go on a short-term trip, which is an 8 to 10 day spring break trip. So if we leave that just there, this is the last group that I took with me. This was in the spring of 2020, so this was our COVID trip. But those students up there, some of you may know some of them, but they are a diverse group. I had volleyball players and soccer player, a wrestler, even an online student, people who didn't necessarily know each other very well when we went on that trip and now are lifelong friends. This is a specific study abroad, or travel study I should say, that is based in a class called Business in a Global Environment, that if you are a business student, you are required to take that course. So the itinerary for this trip is very oriented towards business. So we do finance, we go to the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, we visit the Amsterdam flower trading market, we visit the Rotterdam port, which is the largest port in Europe. We have a couple of business visits. We've been very blessed to have Erasmus University host us for the afternoon and look at their graduate programs. and also see some cultural things. The last group went to the Anne Frank House. Amsterdam is a very easy place to travel to, unlike Liberia, so it doesn't take very long to get there, and it's very, very easy to move about. As a matter of fact, the trip in 2018, and we're going to replicate this for this trip, they did a bike tour of Amsterdam that was run by a consortium that is working with companies in the city of Amsterdam to limit the amount of cars that drive there, just because the traffic is so bad, about getting people to embrace cycling as a form of getting to and from work. So I just wanted to make a plug for this. If you are interested, if you're a business student, you're going to be getting a ton of emails from me about this. We are going for spring break 2023, and I have some flyers here I can leave at the back for you. I'm going to say one of two things. If you are interested in any of these programs, even the short-term ones, the longer-term ones, or the semester-long ones, please apply for your passport if you don't have one. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I could tell you is it's a lot easier to see the world when you have your passport ready to go rather than having to wait. I think it's on a 6 to 8 week time frame right now. So that's about all I have to say. Dr. Harrison's going to come up. You know Amy Harrison. Many of you know her, so Assistant Professor of Higher Education Leadership.
My name is Dr. Amy Harrison. I am teaching the graduate programs. I also oversee Keynote, so if you are a freshman or first year or a transfer student, then right now, then you have me in class, and if you have been in the past couple years, you would have had me. So I'm here just to talk about some experiences as it relates to global education and travel studies. So first of all, I was a student at a faith-based university, much like MBU, many years ago, sitting in your seat, hearing some faculty member talk about these opportunities. And the one that really gripped me was I had the opportunity, I did a lot of it though, I loved it. I went to China, Thailand, all with the university on these short-term trips. And I think the reason those are really attractive to young people, well, anybody who's never really traveled before, is they're really sort of low risk in the sense that you're there for, 8 days, 10 days, 2 weeks at the most, and then you get to come home. So they don't require the kind of commitment that long-term study abroad does. You're not there for a month, 2 months, a semester, anything like that. And so I went on a lot of those short-term trips. And then, my last year of school, I was studying to be a teacher, and one of the internship opportunities we got was to go to Ghana, West Africa. And so that just really drew me in a way that I can only describe as the Lord, as the Holy Spirit really, really drawing me toward that. So I went, and I did 3 months in Ghana, teaching and just living in the village and learning how, a large portion of the world lives in another place. And so I came back from that trip just absolutely changed and absolutely devastated that I would never get to go back. And so I won't get into it all, but I ended up going back the next year. And then I started, that's when I began working with an organization that rescues children who'd been trafficked into child slavery. Worked with them for a number of years, lived in Ghana for a number of years, also met a really good friend named Stephen. Stephen is a Ghanaian. He is the lead rescue coordinator at this organization. He literally walks into villages and has the names of kids on like a yellow sheet of paper and goes to these village chiefs and the police and he says, I'm gonna need this kid back from you. And he does incredible work. And so he and I, really good kindred spirits, became really good friends. And we started a school in 2015 called First Step Academy. First Step Academy is, I always tell people, it's not going to change the world, but it is the best example of just digging a well and planting a vineyard right where you live. So it's in Stevens Village and has really become kind of a lighthouse for a lot of very vulnerable kids and very vulnerable families and children who are vulnerable to being trafficked. And so we are truly just busting at the seams. The school has over 200 students and it employs like 10 full-time staff. So within 5 years, it's just grown exponentially. And so that's where I take students every year. So I don't live in Ghana anymore. But I take students there every year on a trip, and we do a vacation Bible school and we do a sports camp. The kids just absolutely love it and look forward to it. But I honestly think, I remember when I was going to Ghana a lot, and if you've been to a lot of parts of, I don't know, I guess a lot of countries where people travel a lot, where a lot of churches do mission, it's really a revolving door of people coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And my kids, I remember one of the most profound things they said to me is they said, Madame, that's what they call teachers there, Madame. They said, Madame, we know you love us because you always come back. And I think that is really the beauty of it, is this established long-term relationship. So every year around May, the kids will start kind of looking for our MBU group to come back. I'm not taking a trip this year because I'm also going to Israel. I'm leading a trip to Israel over New Year's Eve. So that's going to be really exciting. And that organization is called Passages. We partner with them every year. And I just got to be the lucky one whose name got drawn this year. So I'm super excited about that. But Ghana is a wonderful place. It's called the Gateway to Africa. It's very accessible to get to. We take a direct flight out of New York, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful trip. You're there with faculty. And I do want to say this. I know that it's cost prohibitive a lot of times for people to travel, but the Ghana trip is not. You pay what I would pay. No one's making money off of this. And my friends in Ghana just kind of run it for us from the ground. And so I would really, really encourage you to do something like that. The biggest transformation I see is in students themselves. You go from being total strangers to literally in 24 hours talking about, if you're going to the bathroom regularly, to be discreet. And so, it's just an immediate connection and a lot of transparency that happens. And I've seen students, absolutely like saved on those trips. Just totally shatters kind of your worldview and opens you up to something different, as it did for me. So I hope you will be bold and do it. And you're welcome to reach out to me. This trip, unlike the Liberia trip, is open to all MBU students. I think Liberia is just like a nursing thing. So it is open to all MBU students, and I hope you'll take part. So I think I've taken 5 minutes. I'll go. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Thank you. For the next part of this, what I'm going to do is I have some students seated to my left that have been on study abroad or international experiences, and they're going to share with you some of their interactions and responses. I have some questions for them, and in answering, I would ask you to introduce yourself, tell me where you went, when you went, and then answer the question. So first of all, what was your motivation for going abroad?
Okay, so my name's Elise Grogg. I'm a senior nursing student. I went to Liberia from June 11th through June 23rd of this summer. And my motivation for going abroad, there was a lot of reasons, because I wanted to go to Africa. I thought that was really cool. It was a nursing medical mission trip, so it was helping me for my career. And then I am in the honors program here at MBU, so I needed to study abroad for that. And then also, I'm taking a minor right now, the Nursing Across Cultures minor, and so a study abroad trip is a part of that too.
Great.
My name is Emily Conan. I'm a business major, and I went to Barcelona, Spain in the summer of 2021. And my motivation was simply just to travel. I have been very lucky to travel quite a bit growing up. And this was my first opportunity to do like a long-term stay. So I was there for 2 months. It was a 6-week program, and I stayed a little extra. And I just wanted to see another culture and like really live somewhere that wasn't St. Louis.
I'm Grace Hahn, also a senior business major in my last semester here at MBU. And my motivation, similar to Elise's, is that I am in the honors program and required to do a study abroad. But I chose this program specifically in Dublin, Ireland, to do an internship. And then also I do have Irish blood in me, so I thought it would be cool to kind of see where some of my ancestors went from.
Okay, thank you. Study abroad is one of the most transformational experiences you can have in college. Can you share with us an area or two where you feel like there was the greatest change in you?
Well, Africa is much different than the United States, so there was lots of change. Probably for me, though, I mean, we saw so many different medical diagnoses that we don't see here in the U.S., and it was really cool to just take care of people of all ages in Africa, and especially the villagers. Like, they have little to no access to health care. And so it was really cool to be a part of that and to do it all in Jesus' name. And so coming back to the U.S., I think one of the biggest changes that I have seen in my heart and with my relationship with the Lord is even at clinicals, at work in the hospital, like before I go into the patient's room, I really want to make an impact on their stay in the hospital and in their care. And hello? Okay, awesome. So I would say that was probably the biggest change.
Great.
Personally, I gained like a new sense of confidence. I didn't know I had 5 roommates. There were 6 girls in an apartment. I had never lived with anyone besides my family. I had never been across the ocean like that. I was managing my finances completely on my own, and I was in a city that I didn't speak the language. So going abroad was, coming home, I realized how much confidence I had gained in myself just to be able to travel. Like I said, I had 5 roommates. We all had different schedules, so during the days, I would kind of take myself out and just go see the city alone sometimes, and I would go to the beach just to hang out. Like, it's a very different experience, and Spain was very travelable. Like, we had metro cards, and so I'd say the biggest thing was, just the confidence to kind of be my own individual in this entirely new city. We met so many people. I'm not the most outgoing individual, and there you just start talking to someone on the street, and you learn that they're from Italy or they're from a different country. You learn what language they speak. And I had taken a photography class, and I had to do a really big project about creating a story through photos. And in my apartment complex, there was this gentleman that we kept running into. He only spoke Spanish, so luckily one of my roommates was able to translate for me. But I never would have struck a conversation with him and his sister without having this experience. And he became the subject of my photo project, so yeah.
For me, like I mentioned, I did the internship program, and so I got to really see what work culture was like in Ireland. I worked at a smaller company called ALU Experiences, an event management company, and I got to kind of see the difference between how they work over in Europe versus how they work here. Here, we're very time-oriented, time management-oriented. You can go into the office on time, and on time is late. On time means being 15 minutes early in the US. Whereas once you got over to Ireland, you could show up an hour late with a coffee in your hand and still spend an hour talking to your boss. So that's where I experienced the most change. I am very time-oriented. I plan my days in hour-long intervals. And going over to Ireland was just a really transformative experience because I was able to change my mind in how I view time and how I view work and just the relationships that I have with my coworkers as well.
Okay, thank you. So share with us, what was the most difficult aspect of your study abroad journey? A lot of students don't go because they think, well, I just couldn't do that. What was the most difficult? And then tell me how you overcame that.
Yeah, so the spiders, of course. Those were terrifying. But definitely the most challenging part of this trip was on June 16th. It was 5 days into the trip. We were in the thick of a jungle. And I got the news that my dog, Bella, she passed away. And if you know me, you know I love dogs. And she was my best friend. And that I have been very blessed to not have experienced lots of deaths in my life, but that was definitely the most impactful death that I have experienced. And it was really hard being away from family, not having access to communicate with them easily. And I was fortunate to be able to text my family, but my dad was trying to find me a flight home because I just wanted to be home with my family so much. But by the grace of God, he comforted me in ways that I can't describe. My team was just amazing with praying for me, just comforting me during this process. And just a couple days later, I was able to still take care of these villagers despite the mourning that I was going through. And so, yeah.
The biggest challenge was that was my first time experiencing homesickness. I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was just gonna coast through and be fine. But the second week that I was there, I was just making eggs for breakfast in my apartment, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And my roommate came out and she was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "I think I'm homesick." I don't know why, because it's a weird experience because you're having so much fun, you're going and experiencing all these new things, and I had complete access to talk to my family. We FaceTimes most evenings, and I still was just super homesick. It was very weird, but yeah, just how you overcome, you just gotta stick it out. The feeling does go away, and then by the end of the trip, I was like, wow, I should have done a full semester, not just 6 weeks, because it didn't feel like long enough time.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm someone who could see myself going and living abroad, and so doing a 6-week program, the first 2 weeks feel like a vacation. Even though you're going and you're doing, for me, I did classes and an internship, so I was doing some studying, some learning, but for the most part, I was going out with my roommates and my friends and seeing lots of different sites around the city, also going around the country of Ireland. And so the first 2 weeks really felt like a vacation, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I have another month left of this and adjusting to life in Ireland and not just being on a really long vacation. It honestly felt like you were moving somewhere different for a month and a half, which is a little difficult, especially whenever you're not surrounded by what you normally are surrounded by. So I would say that was my most difficult thing.
And I will say on that, in 23 years that I've been doing this here at MBU, I've only had one student who could not overcome their homesickness and actually returned in the middle of their program. But that's a very common thing, to get sort of part of the way through and then all of a sudden be like, but you can get through it, and the people there will help you to get through it. So let me ask you this. Was your study abroad experience what you imagined it would be? And if not, what was different?
Well, I think it's hard to have a concept of what you're getting into when you're still here in the U.S. But for me, we talked about the culture of Liberia and what we would see there, but still being in person in West Africa, Liberia, in the jungle, like, you experience things that you would never think of. But I definitely think that I just went in with a mindset of being flexible. That was our word for the trip, flexibility. So I just kind of went with the flow and took what God gave us, so yeah.
I am not gonna lie, I had no expectations for my trip. I was like, I'm just gonna go, and whatever happens, happens. So I would say that it was good, do that. It was fun. The only thing that I wasn't we weren't offered a homestay yet, and that would be the only thing I think I would have potentially changed, because speaking with previous students that had gone on study abroad and were able to do a homestay, they had amazing things to say about it. So that would really be the only thing I would change, was if I had the opportunity again, would to maybe take that opportunity to be with a family. I think it would have opened a few more doors, just not only for the city that you're in, but people that you're going to meet and connections that you can make for long-term stays. So that would be the only thing I would have changed. But yeah, I didn't really have many expectations as far as what I wanted to do or see. I kind of wanted to go with the flow, and so I was able to travel to a few different cities inside Spain, I went to Valencia as well, and I went to Paris and Germany after the program. So yeah, I just kind of went with the flow. We kind of figured it out day by day, and it was really awesome.
So mine wasn't really what I had expected. I didn't have a whole lot of expectations other than what I wanted to find out was whether or not I could see myself living in another country. In doing my internship, I really enjoyed their work culture, and then also just the two ladies that I worked with were absolutely amazing. If I were to live anywhere, it would probably be Ireland. And just a short little note of praise for my two coworkers that I worked with. They were just absolutely amazing and jokingly, but also hopefully seriously, offered me a freelance position if I do want to go live in Dublin. So maybe in a couple of years I'll take that. But that would be the biggest thing that I experienced and would say it succeeded my expectations of what I wanted out of the travel study. Along with that, I too got to take a couple of outside trips, went to the Cliffs of Moher as well as Belfast, and then took a weekend trip in London and Paris, which was really fun. But ultimately, I think that just the experience overall, whether you just stayed in the city like some of my roommates did, or went traveling, just exceeds any of the expectations you could expect for the type of program that you go on.
And how difficult was it for you to adapt to a different culture? You probably had the biggest culture difference, but tell us about that.
It was very, very difficult to adapt to Liberia, especially when we went to the jungle. We took bucket baths. So we had a cup and we had a bucket of well water, and that's how we took our shower. Also, the toilets, they were cement holes in the ground, and so we got good at squatting. The spiders, again, terrifying. Sleeping in tents, mosquito tents was very interesting as well. So yeah, all of those aspects that we consider very gross or dirty, a lot of those things that we had there were luxury to the Liberians. And that was a huge eye-opening thought, so, yeah.
I'm just kind of giggling. I'm realizing how different our experiences were because my apartment didn't have AC, which I didn't care, but someone else in my apartment did, and they complained and they gave us money back. Like, we had very different experiences. But the biggest change to adapt was I didn't speak the language because they speak 4 languages in Barcelona. So I was not learning 4. I barely learned 1. So that was the biggest challenge. Most everyone spoke English there, though, which was really nice. But the classes, so I didn't do an internship. I only took classes. And similar to Ireland, time is not the same here. We started class late almost every day, which in the beginning I was very stressed about. I was like, we are supposed to start in class, like everyone, where is our professor? And our classes were 4 hours, but we had a break in the middle. So we would leave and go get food, and if you weren't back, it was not a big deal. So we did learn to use that to our advantage. We would go get a full lunch instead of just a little snack, but it was just a very different thing. And coming home, I had realized very quickly after that I was just a lot looser of a person. I wasn't as tightly wound. And I think that has been a very good thing, especially moving forward, and I changed jobs when I got home. It was just a really, I guess you could say that was one of the transformational things for myself as well, just realizing that you don't have to, taking those ideas from other cultures and bringing them to America. Initially, I brought my American thoughts to Europe, and it kind of flip-flopped, which was really cool to see. And it was really cool because my coworkers saw that when I got home as well. They're like, we can see the different things that have kind of transformed you as an individual and the growth that you've had as well. So.
For me, it wasn't really difficult to adapt, mainly because in Dublin, that's one of their bigger cities in Ireland, they all speak English. A couple of them do learn secondary languages, but even their country language, Gaelic, is actually their second language. Pretty much everybody speaks English. The hardest part for me was actually taking my weekend trip to London and Paris. I took the budget airline of Europe called Ryanair, and on my way out of Paris, got stuck in a small little French town 2 hours outside of Paris, and no one spoke a lick of English, and I spoke one phrase in French. And so I walked around a small French town for an hour and a half, asking literally everyone, "Parlez-vous anglais?" which means, "Do you speak English?" And walked around for an hour and a half just trying to find a bathroom before I boarded another train to the airport. So that was the hardest part. Picking your country is very important. I would not suggest maybe going to a smaller program in France unless you speak French. But for the most part, in Ireland, it was a phenomenal experience and the culture was fantastic.
I do want to say something about that. Any of you who have language requirements as part of your degree, you can get those requirements met at a study abroad. You can have beginning level language all the way through extremely advanced language offered. And my last question is, would you encourage other students to study abroad, considering your experience, and why?
Yes, easy yes. I will add though, in Liberia, there is no concept of a schedule. You have to be very flexible and kind of go with the flow. And so that also, like you said, like whenever you come back to the States, I kept on telling everyone who I was meeting for appointments, like, I'm on Africa time still. Like, I was getting to my appointments late and I had no concept of time anymore. But I think there's a good lesson to be learned in that. I think it's good to kind of go with the flow, even here in the States. Like, yes, we have classes to go to and appointments to make and work to go to, but in that process, if you come across a friend who's struggling, taking the time to meet them where they're at and talk with them, listen to them, like, those are very important things that we just take for granted here. So yes, I would encourage everyone to try to go on a study abroad opportunity, whether it's to Africa or to Dublin or anywhere. So yeah, it was an amazing experience for me, and there was lots of culture shock, but the fruit that I have gained from the trip and the relationship that I have gained with the Lord is all worth it.
Like Elise said, it's an easy yes to encourage other students to want to go abroad. Whether that's for a short term, long term, or even full semester. I wish I would have been able to do a full semester now that I've done it. But absolutely, and I will be very transparent in questions as well. Before going, I had asked a lot about the finances of it. So if you have questions, I will be your girl. Don't hesitate. I will be very open with what I had saved, what I had spent, scholarships that I received, and all of that. So after you get your passport, get a credit card. I did not do that. Do it. I'm telling you right now. I spent so much money that I didn't need to because I only used a debit card. So I will be very open with those, and just the travel as well. Spain is a really cool country. I realize I'm not a big city liver, but it was fun to be in a big city for that short amount of time just because you get to travel a lot easier. But you learn those things about yourself that you probably wouldn't. And also just the travel, it's an experience that you have to experience for yourself. I can sit here and tell you every single story from my trip, and you still won't be able to feel the same feelings that I have or identify those transformations in yourself. So I would absolutely encourage everyone to study abroad, at least in some respect, short or long. So.
Yeah, to touch on the credit card thing, just so you guys don't freak out. The reason she said that is not so you can go and load up your credit card. It's because you don't get foreign transaction fees on a lot of credit cards. So that's the main reason behind that. But my answer is also an easy yes to go do a study abroad. I have gained 2 really, really awesome friends who came and saw me in September. And then we're also planning to get together we were just talking this morning because Taylor Swift released her tour dates, and we are going to get together next year for that. But I gained lifelong friendships through that, and then also just grew a lot as a person, and as Elise said, like in my relationship with God, and now can even see myself for sure living overseas in a different country doing a job that I love. So I would definitely recommend going on a program, whether it's to see if you can live overseas or if you just love to travel and want to go experience a program.
I wanted to say something about Emily for just a second. Her trip was in 21, which was when the world was still pretty much locked down. And when she first came to me and said, I want to go do this, I said, are you sure you want to go do this? Because you have all the COVID things to deal with. But she was brave, and she went and did it, and she's still alive and didn't get sick. And there are a lot of things that you may think in your life that you just can't overcome or that you don't want to face a challenge. But if you do that, you'll find that you can overcome it, that you can defeat that challenge, and that you will grow through the process of doing that. And that's really what we're hoping to do through these programs. I do also want to make a note, it was mentioned earlier, MBU does not make a penny off of any of your study abroad programs. A lot of universities charge money for the university as well as whatever the cost of your program is. We don't do that. Whatever the cost of your program is what you pay, and wherever possible, we offer scholarship opportunities and things to help you along the way. So, Aaron, thank you.
Can you thank Mr. Kilzer and our guests today for sharing with us? Thank y'all so much. So if you open your iAttended app, you should be able to get the beacon notification for it to give you credit automatically. But if you don't see that, the code will be on the screen. You can use that as well. Thank y'all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you really will consider studying abroad, traveling abroad, doing missions abroad. And then in a couple weeks, we're going to have our international festival on the week of the 17th. That Thursday, we'll have a missions-focused chapel, and then we'll have the international festival in the Great Hall. We want to celebrate the nations and those that are here. And so you can ask a lot of our international students about their experience. They're doing just this, but they're doing it here with us. And so they're a great resource for you. So thank y'all for being here. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on Thursday for chapel.
Have you ever missed somewhere